Okay, thanks, Cody. The meeting is called to order. Ellie, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Ron,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
John,
Here.
Joycelyn,
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, the next matter is for us to approve the agenda. If we could get a motion, please.
So move.
Second.
Say it's been moved and seconded. We approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. Our next matter is to approve the minutes of the last meeting of May 17th. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Thanks, Michael. Second.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes for the last meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstaining? Good. Minutes are approved. Thank you. And I believe we have all of our friends here from North Carolina. Thank you for interrupting your noon hour, your lunchtime.
We are delighted to interrupt our noon hour and be with you all. So thank you very much for allowing us to be part of today's meeting. So Ron, you want me to just take it with our part at this point or anything else you want to cover first?
The floor is yours.
Okay, super. Well, good. I guess it's still morning there. Good morning, everyone. I do have my two teammates on this search with me, Chris Shade and Carla Cushing. I know that some of you have met each of them, but I thought it might make sense for us just to do a very quick intro so you understand a bit more about really what everybody's role is on this search. So again, I'm Shanna Plott. I'm the CEO of Coleman Liu Canny Bowen, and I am one of the two lead consultants on the search, which means I am intimately involved with each and every detail of the search. And that is from all of the preliminary documents. I'll lead the meetings that we have with you all, certainly heavily involved in sourcing and interviewing candidates, but we'll stay right by your side through each and every step of this search process, truly until the end when you pick your winner and then beyond that time as well. So that's me. Chris, why don't I pass it to you?
Absolutely. So pleasure to meet everyone. My name is Chris Shade. I'm the other search consultant. So my role is similar in nature to what Shanna just mentioned to you. Prior to coming into executive search, I had a career in both education and nonprofit, and now have a portfolio that is focused on nonprofit and higher education within this space. So excited to get to work with all of you.
Thank you, Chris. And Chris squeezed some time. He's going to have to drop off, I think at 11:30 your time. So just a heads up on that, but we'll keep things going accordingly. Carla, would you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Carla Cushing. You will know me as the person who sends lots of emails and bugs you to death. I do all the business support, the back office, the logistics and scheduling, and all that fun stuff.
And Carla really won't bug you to death, but be nice to her, because I always say that business support has the hardest job on a search in terms of making sure all the trains run on time and all of that good stuff. But Chris and Carla and I talk just about daily on this search. And so, at any given time, if you can't get one of us, you can typically get one of the others, and we can all update you pretty quickly if you do have a question that arises. So that is your team. And your team has been busy at work since we last met. And so my hope is that today we can talk about a couple of things. I know last time we met, we talked about trying to shave some time off the timeline. And so we have made an attempt to do that. And Cody, if you can allow Carla to share her screen, I'd like to walk through this with you. And we will also get you a revised copy of this. I didn't want you to have too many versions floating out there, but we were able to shave off a month, maybe a little more, again, knowing there's never a guarantee in terms of timing, but I think the more we can all shoot for that, the better.
Shanna, yes. So I've stopped my share, so Carla should be able to start sharing her screen with the green share screen button in the middle of your menu there. And whenever you're ready for me to take
Bottom.
back over, just stop your share and I'll put mine back up.
Great. All right, well, this document will look quite similar to what we used before, but in essence, what we did is we tried to back everything up. And as we talked about, tried to maybe have some parallel tracks running. So obviously we had our kickoff meeting in May. We are off to the races.
Could you
with our-
magnify that a bit? Maybe expand it out to the full margins. Our screen's a little small.
Got it. Can you see
Maybe
that?
maybe one more might help. Is that helpful?
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No, thank you for speaking up. All right, so stakeholder listening tour is underway. I actually had a call right before this call with Jerry Nolte, which was extremely helpful, and he was delightful to speak with. Carla is in the process of getting everything else scheduled with that. So I think you all submitted about 30 stakeholder names that you'd like for us to speak with. We're doing those really in a myriad of formats. We're doing a number of one-on-one calls. Then we're also doing some group Zoom meetings, and we'll cover exactly the same topics. And we've sort of divided people by stakeholder category. So like we've got your government people, we've got this, we've got that. So we've tried to group some of them. Again, that helps us make up some time along the way. And then certainly anybody who cannot make a designated time, we'll have a one-on-one call with. And then likely at the close of the listening tour, we'll do sort of a catch-all meeting, maybe 2 meetings where anyone can join who was on that list and perhaps was not able to make any of the other times work. But as we talked about last time, we're going to hopefully get out in the market sooner than later and start sourcing for candidates as we are conducting the listening tour, because as we're interviewing people, we can adapt, focus areas and that kind of thing based on what we're hearing on the listening tour. So just know that that is underway. And our goal will be, as soon as that listening tour is done, we're going to give you a confidential report. It's a summary report of stakeholder feedback. So we're off and running with that. The other thing we talked about as a group was doing an employee survey that could be sent out through SurveyMonkey, through email to all employees to give them an opportunity to be a part of this process as well. So we're going to circle back to that in a couple of minutes after we get through the timeline, but we do have a draft of the questions ready. It's short and sweet. We find that it needs to be very user-friendly, that folks need to be able to fill it out, in a relatively brief period of time. It is specific to the search, but that's ready to go just as soon as we get your approval on it. The big need that we have is the approved position description. I know that you all were still talking through some of the key criteria. I know I've seen a couple of emails come through with some suggested revisions. So, whatever we can do to help expedite that, have it ready so that we can get out in the market, the quicker the better. And that's something that we find we really need in order to start sourcing candidates. It really legitimizes the search kind of in the universe of searches and conversations with candidates and that kind of thing. So hopefully we can get that position description buttoned up very, very quickly so that we can get out and start sourcing. So rather than waiting until July really to start the sourcing phase or the end of June, as we talked about, we'd like to get out a lot more quickly. So you see that I've got June to the close of search, sourcing, recruiting, and evaluating candidates. We've already started a whole bunch of original research. We've identified institutions, we've identified individuals. So as soon as we have that position description, we're ready to start pushing out the position description to kind of a broad group, as well as proactively one-on-one approaching people that we believe to be very applicable to the specs of this role. We also, as soon as we have the approved position description, we'll post it on our website. We recommend you post it on the library website. And then we'd recommend doing a couple of paid postings. And the two I think that come to mind are the ALA, and then I believe the ULC also has a site or posting opportunity there. So I'd like to, Ron, work with you on whether we have permission to do that. I think those are about $250 each. But it's a great way to push out the information in a broad way, in a quick fashion. And then even though we're still proactively approaching people one-on-one, it's really nice when they can, oh, I think I just saw something come through on that, or whatever the case may be. So again, we'd like to quickly create a nice buzz out in the market through the postings, through an e-blast that we'll do, and simultaneously we'll start reaching out to people. As soon as we start reaching out to people that we think are promising candidates, we'll start interviewing them this month. So our goal would be that June and July, even though it's a little tricky because summer is tricky for some folks who are on vacation, we will be heavy duty in sourcing mode during that time, identifying, recruiting, and evaluating candidates. So what I am targeting is that we push up the time that we present a group of candidates to you all to early August. That's a little bit of an ambitious timeline, but I think with a little luck and a lot of hard work, we can get there. It doesn't mean that those are the only candidates you'll see. We're going to keep sourcing, but it'll be more of a one-off kind of thing. But, we think by early August, we can have a good group for you to take a look at, hopefully narrow down to a subset of that group, and then be ready to start interviewing. Carla, can you scroll down a little bit? And then we're targeting that first round interviews with the search committee should happen in early August. In this day and age, typically that first round is done via Zoom as a panel interview, and we can help you with structure and format and all of that. It will also help with expediting the timeline a bit. And then you might recall we talked about this could be a 2-step interview process when it comes to your team. It could be 3 steps. Once you get through that first round group of interviews, Chris and I will facilitate the discussion and the decision-making among your group of helping you get, again, to a subset of that initial interview group. Sometimes what we find is that search committees are very aligned and they can quickly get to a group of finalists that's typically between 2 and 4. It's typically 3. And if that's the case, you can go on to a final round interview and we can skip that second step. More times than not, what we see is that maybe you didn't quite get enough information on this topic or another, or maybe, one of you prefers these 3 and somebody else has very different preferences. We can build in a second round, which we have slated for September, to get you again to that finalist group of candidates. We'd like to recommend that we have a quick turnaround and you all do those finalist on-site interviews actually in September. This typically is a full day and a half kind of visit with each finalist candidate. Doesn't mean the search committee has to be involved in every piece of every interview, but certainly it does require a commitment of time on your part. And typically, we want to schedule those in a pretty tight turnaround so that you don't lose track of who said what and who did what or what have you. But then at the close of that last finalist interview, we would ask that the search committee, and we'll join you, would convene to make decisions around their candidate of choice. Now, once you've narrowed to a group of finalists, we will go ahead and do a full reference report on each of those candidates. We will have already verified educational credentials. I think we talked about if you'd like to do an assessment, we can give candidates the Golden, which is a self-reported assessment instrument. It's really not for selection, but it's one more data point. Some committees want to do something over and above that, where they actually would engage with an outside third party. And we have a number of strategic partners who provide this service to do a deep assessment that, there is an additional fee for that. Some groups will do that on 3 finalists. More times than not, search committees will choose to do it just on the finalists. And it's sort of just a last data point, hopefully a point of affirmation around your selection. Then I believe you will take to the board your recommendation for the top candidate to whom an offer will be extended. And assuming we can stay on schedule for this, then in September, you could make a formal announcement in terms of who your next CEO is. Let me take a breath there, and then I want to scroll down and we'll talk a little bit about some advanced calendaring. This does make up a bit of time. It is going to require the quick responsiveness and availability on your part as a committee. We don't take that lightly. We know you're busy over and above your big job within the library, so we try to lighten your load as much as possible, but it does still require a heavy lift on your part in terms of interviewing, getting together to make decisions and that kind of thing. Again, knowing we're going to be by your side every step of the way. So let me ask if there's any questions, comments, feedback on that condensed timeline before we talk about calendaring.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One, when you mentioned the organizations where you would post, I didn't hear PLA, but is that handled by posting at the ALA? Or is that a separate requirement?
Well, that's a good question, and it's certainly one that we can look into. We did a lot of research on posting sites on the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, and the recommendation from a number of people was made of ALA and ULC. But we're happy to, listen, I think posting more places is better than not, and we can do a little digging if you'd like for us to, and find out how much overlap is there in the group that might have access to that.
Yeah, I think it might be well worthwhile to make
Right.
a separate post in PLA, even though that's a part of ALA in a way.
Yep.
They're nevertheless more likely to have the people that we want to get to.
Yep,
I think,
perfect.
perhaps. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we fully support doing that.
Just a little comment on this point, Ron and John, is that, Shanna, our experience is that it is one job board for all of the subdivisions, but kick the tires, figure it out.
Okay.
One of the things that we have discovered, and certainly you can contact our HR director, Jennifer Ridley, about this, is that we have actually had several of our job descriptions rejected by ALA in the past.
Okay.
It is due in part to the fact that we put ADA guidelines on our job descriptions, that you must be able to do this with or without reasonable accommodation. And ALA will not post any job descriptions with any sort of physical parameters in them.
Got it. Thank you.
Just an FYI.
So Jennifer's the person we should work with on that?
Yeah. Jennifer Ridley is the HR director.
Awesome.
And she's the one who has had the experience with attempting to post with ALA in the past.
Perfect. Very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one other, maybe a couple of other. When can we have the confidential summary of the outside contacts? Can you give us a date on that?
My hope is that by the end of June, all of those conversations will have taken place. Not that you're interested in how the sausage is made, but anytime we have a conversation, we go ahead and drop in that feedback. So it's sort of living through the life of this listening tour. So pretty much as quickly as we get that last meeting done, we can clean it up a little bit and get it to you quickly. So our goal would be in June, we would get that to you.
Okay, but toward the end of June, perhaps.
Probably, yes. We've got a lot of people to talk to over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and the same question for the employee survey. When might that be complete?
Well,
we've
done a draft of it. I'd like for you all to look at that. In fact, Carla, if you want to flip to that, and then we can come back to the advanced calendaring. But as soon as you can approve this, we can drop it into SurveyMonkey. And then I don't know if Jennifer should be our best contact. Typically what we do is then send it to whomever within the library can disseminate it, across the system to all employees. So the formatting would be a little different, but what we would recommend is that you really have, in essence, I'm going to scroll up just a little bit, Carla. There's really four main questions. What are the three best things about your system today? What are the three biggest challenges or concerns that you have today? And then we like to do a little ranking exercise that basically says, when you're considering the ideal next leader, how important are these things? And we took a stab. There may be others that you want to include. Can you all see this, or do you want her to pump it up?
Sort of.
Okay, you want to expand?
Yeah, that's
All right.
better.
And then the last question is, what else do you want the board to know about either the current state of the library today or about this search? So it's sort of a catch-all. But again, in terms, and we asked people to rank on question 3 that you can see, very important, important somewhat, and not really important. Open communication, experience leading a large team, experience working in or running a library, well-connected across the greater Kansas City region, experience serving as the face of an organization, strong financial acumen, passion for technology and innovation, and fundraising experience. And there may be others you'd like to include. There may be some that you would like to remove. Any thoughts or feedback on that?
I think that's the thing that we need to deal with, and we can perhaps deal with that at this meeting and get back to you with a decision.
Perfect.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay. So to answer your question in terms of how soon can we get the survey feedback, here's what I've found with surveys with employees. And I do think, look, your team's got a lot of skin in the game on this one. So I suspect you'll have a pretty good hit rate in terms of response to the survey. We've tried to keep it kind of short and sweet so that hopefully it's very user friendly. But I think giving people too much time to respond is not a good thing because it gets buried in your inbox and you forget about it. So typically, what we would say is to put it out there and ask that people respond in, a few days time, which means, let's say if we could get it out by Friday of this week, my recommendation would be that we ask people to complete it no later than, call it, next Friday. And then by, early to mid the following week, we can aggregate those results and get them to you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, feedback on the employee survey?
Michael, Michelle?
I don't have any questions or anything, and looks pretty sweet to me.
No, I'm good.
Great.
I don't know that, I guess my only thing is, and it doesn't have to do with the survey, is I'm not so worried about, I'm more concerned we're pushing up this timeline. I'm more concerned about that we're rushing things when, you may need more time. I don't know. I don't like that. That's my only issue I have, is speeding up the timeline, but that's my, it is what it is.
I appreciate that very much. And here's what I would say to you. And we talked about this, I know, at the last meeting. We hear you loud and clear that there's a sense of urgency. We're not going to go dark for these 2 months. And if we're finding that it's taking a little longer, you all know it's a weird market out there right now. The job market's tight, it's summer. So if we find that we're going to sacrifice quality for speed, we will keep you posted and we can push out those interview dates and that kind of thing. So I appreciate you saying that. We're going to do it. It's in everybody's interest, right, for things to move quickly. And we're, all hands on deck, going to be out there just as quickly as we can get out there once we have the position description. So you'll be hearing from us regularly across that time. And if we find that we need to adjust accordingly, we'll recommend doing so.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Shannon, I was wondering, with regard to, you mentioned the day or day and a half on-site visit. Yep. Do you envision that as all of the final candidates coming during that day or day and a half, or individually, or how does that work?
Typically, they come on separate days. Now, every now and then, and you'll have to tell me if this is doable, every now and then we'll have a committee. So I'll give you a typical example of that on-site visit, is that a candidate maybe flies in midday on Tuesday. Someone, gives them a little bit of a tour of the area, welcomes them, you get them settled, and either your search committee or a couple of members of your search committee would take them to dinner. And then they have sort of a full day starting the next day. They're going to meet with a bunch of different groups of stakeholders. You'd probably have them meet with the leadership team. You'd have them meet with, obviously, your search committee. You might do a meet and greet with other folks from the community who want to weigh in. You'd have a couple more meals with them, and then you get them on their way by that evening. Sometimes what happens is that, again, it takes some choreography on your part, but you've got the next candidate that maybe comes in midday that day, and you have somebody else, that gives them a little tour or whatever, and you start with a dinner that night. So you can do some overlap as long as you're careful, but no, they would all be distinctly different meetings, the exact same structure, but it would be, all devoted to one candidate and then to the next, and then potentially a third.
Very good, thank you. And just another question. You mentioned sometimes you have a third party come in for a deep assessment.
Yep.
Once everything's been narrowed down. I'm just wondering, can you give me an idea of, I guess, number one, the type of inquiry that would be conducted?
Yeah.
And secondly, if you had any experience with this, anything that's not confidential, could you share what the results were of that effort?
Absolutely. So, you've got a myriad of options. So I referenced the Golden to you. The Golden it's really a personality assessment. It's all self-reported. It's kind of a quick and dirty, gives you just kind of a person's typical tendencies. So it's a 16 box kind of findings, and you would land in one box. It looks and feels a little bit like the Myers-Briggs, although it's normed against other executives across a myriad of industries. So it's not just the general public like the Myers-Briggs, it's leaders, executives that are leading companies, organizations, that kind of thing. So that's one just quick assessment tool. It's inexpensive. I think it costs about $25 a candidate. Sometimes committees will say, we'd like for all candidates who we're going to interview in round one to complete that. Again, it's not intended to be a hire Ron, don't hire Ron kind of instrument, but just one more piece of data that you can see around a person's typical tendencies. So there's that as one assessment option. Then as you move towards the close of a search, and listen, we do not provide these services, we're recruiters. Back in the day, we did have a little division that did assessment work. I made the decision when I bought the firm that it was a little bit of a conflict of interest, and that I would much rather us have strategic partners who we would hang our hat on in terms of quality and all of that we could call upon when a client has that need. So what we see is that sometimes organizations will decide we're going to have either our one finalist or maybe it's two finalists assessed. The cost for that is somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. Some assessments are a lot more expensive than that, but we do have some options that are in that price range. We don't make a dime on that. That is, we bill you whatever they bill us. But typically what that involves is most of and it's usually an industrial and organizational psychologist, an IO psychologist who conducts this. And this means they specialize in the world of work and leadership. And so typically what they'll do is have a candidate complete a couple of online assessment instruments that will evaluate things like decision-making, critical thinking skills, leadership style, those kinds of categories. So they'll do the online instruments, and then the psychologist will typically meet with them. It might be an hour, it might be 2 hours, and do a full interview. Sometimes they'll put them through some exercises. Sometimes I think they call it an inbox exercise where they say, all right, here you go, Ron, here's a scenario, take a minute and read it. And then I'd love for you to respond to me in terms of how you'd handle it. There are a myriad of different structures like that can be a part of it. And then the psychologist, as a result of really blending the assessment data, and it really is raw data that's really only intended for someone who is skilled in terms of analyzing it, but they'll take those, the online instruments and the interview and any exercises that accompanied it, and then give us a full report on their findings about this person and their suitability. We'll share the position description with them for the role. And that's typically how it works. Usually, most of the folks we work with will give you a written report. And if helpful, we could invite them to come as part of a search committee meeting and they can give you some verbal feedback as well.
Good. Shanna, do most of your clients take this step?
I don't know that I could tell you most do. And it's sort of a mix. I'll be really candid with you. I have one client who, tried this and he said, you know what, I don't think it's worth the money. He said, I feel like I handed someone my watch and they told me what time it is. Now, having said that, most clients who use assessment are big believers in assessment. And I have clients that are in the corporate world as well as the not-for-profit world who always, for a role as critical as this, are going to put them through an assessment. Again, it is not intended as a standalone, hire Carla, don't hire her, but it's one more piece of data. I think I used my corny analogy with you all a couple of weeks ago of I look at a search as we're making a photo album, and every touch point is a page in that photo album. So to me, this final assessment is one more page. It's the last page because it's a financial investment. So hopefully it gives you a little more data upon which to make your decision. Also, in addition to that, I think most clients find that it's incredibly helpful in terms of knowing nobody's perfect. You're dealing with human beings, and it may inform how you lead, how you manage, how you support this new leader kind of through this initial phase of new leader integration as well.
Good, thank you.
Other questions? All right, well, Carla, could we flip back to the timeline to that bottom section? So I took a stab at under the search committee meeting schedule. I think if we do want to try to compress the timeline, we need to hopefully go ahead and get some dates on the calendar so that we don't have a delay every time we're trying to find something that works for this committee. And so I took a first stab, and again, we can be flexible, of proposing some dates, backing things up to hopefully help us get to a successful conclusion by, in September, like the week of September 19th. And with that,
Big enough.
again, you can kind of see stepping through these dates. And typically what we would do is, once we decide we're going to present a candidate, we'd go ahead and tell them, listen, we're going to share your background on, and I'm just using hypothetically the date that I suggested, August 8th. I'd like for you to know that we've got a pretty quick turnaround and first round interviews are going to happen next week or week after next, whatever it is. Please go ahead and mark these dates on your calendar. Should you be invited in for an initial round interview, this is when they'll happen. So we'll go ahead and give candidates a heads up that this is coming. Here's the dates. And typically we find that can be very helpful in terms of keeping things moving. So I can send all of these to you, but I wanted to get kind of high level feedback on the modified search timeline, and then we can quickly either revise it or flip it to you as it looks today.
I'm sorry, I had to take a call. So you're saying you're sending us the dates for our calendars too, that you're wanting to do these interviews? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, they're projected on the screen right now, but yes, we can send you. And I tried to give a couple of different options, but I backed into, again, trying to shave some time off the back end of the search process. So, if the stars align and we can make these dates work, fantastic. The sooner we can lock in on those, the better. Again, knowing that if we're finding the market is tight and it's taken longer, then we'll pivot accordingly. But if we can at least...
all those, I have a pretty extensive travel schedule in August.
Okay.
And I am out of town the 17th through the 28th.
Okay. So that would, in essence, mean you're not available for any of the proposed dates for first round interviews. I think it's going to be hard to do them sooner than the 16th. And it may be and I'll leave it to your team to decide if we want to push out and work for perfect attendance. This is kind of what we were talking about last time in terms of the calendars. It gets a little tricky just this time of year. It is, people have travel and all and just busy schedules, but that may push our timeline accordingly if we need to wait until September to start interviews.
Yeah, I'll need to do some double checking, but right now I may be able to leave the 18th. But it's for work.
Sure.
There's no canceling this show.
I
So
completely understand. The other option that we can do, if you all find that it would be easier, is that Carla can send you a doodle poll. We can give you a few options. The tricky thing is it's sort of the domino effect of one date affects the next. But, we could try to do a doodle poll with, call it 3 or 4 options for each of these steps. If you all could promise you very, very quickly access that and respond to it in the next day or two. Would that be helpful?
Ron, do you think?
Sure.
Yeah, I think the doodle poll would be a helpful way to approach it. And
Perfect.
Obviously, it would be wonderful if we could have every meeting with everybody here, but that's probably not going to be possible. So we may have any more than one not being available would, I think, nix it. But, if one just can't be available, I think we still have to go ahead if we're going to meet a reasonable schedule. But that's, that's a discussion of the committee, and I think we need to have that. But that's my own opinion of it.
And if I can weigh in procedurally, we haven't done any in a little while, but procedurally, we have done doodle polls with our entire 12 board members. Because you're right, Shannon, it's kind of a domino effect. It works well for this person and then it won't work well for that person. But everyone can see that. And so sometimes people can make personal adjustments based on that. And so the board is used to dealing with doodle polls, even though we haven't done one in a while. So I concur with John. I think it's a good idea. The question is when is too many people being gone too many? And that's a committee decision.
This is Megan just chiming in. I checked the dates with my schedule and we're looking far enough out that I can make everything work. But if you don't mind including me on the doodle poll, then I can make sure that I don't have trials or anything because I do have a few in September.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Ron, I think that concludes my report unless there's anything else you would like for me to report on.
No, Shannon, that's great. Thank you. Just again, an invitation for anybody who has questions or comments they wish to offer.
Well, I assume that we can get these things that we're seeing up here in print today.
Absolutely.
And in fact, try to act on as many as we can at this meeting following a short break.
Well, that'd be great. In fact, what I'd like to do is just quickly, Carla and I can revise the timeline and we'll just say doodle poll, August doodle poll to follow. And but then we'll send you the employee survey questions immediately as well.
Great.
Super.
All right.
Good presentation. Thank you.
Yes, great. Michael?
Yeah, I have a question, Shannon. I like the dates that you have. For me personally,
okay,
I can make all those dates work. So could you make sure you send us those dates, keep them in there?
You bet.
In addition to the doodle poll, that'd be really great.
Absolutely. In fact, Carla, I'll zip down to your office as soon as they break and we'll word that accordingly, but we'll leave those in.
Okay, great.
All right. So last question for me, and then I promise I'll let you get onto your other business. Where does the position description sit today? Who is the keeper of that at this moment?
We had recommendations that are going to be incorporated from our legal counsel, and you can get that this afternoon. Make sure you have it.
That'd be wonderful. All right, well then we're going to send this to you in just a couple of minutes so that you've got everything in front of you. And we are standing by.
Right.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any general comments or observations about?
No, I
We
think,
just
you know,
had-
she's laid out very clearly about 3 areas in which we as a committee need to make a decision to give to her so she can proceed. And I would hope that we could do that at this meeting. Now, we may not be able to, but I would hope we could do it at this meeting where we're all here.
Good. The final listing of qualifications she will get this afternoon. They were reviewed by the committee, and 2 recommendations which are already in place were recommended by Megan, so she can get that. I'll make sure she gets it by this afternoon. So you mentioned there are 3 comments that you wanted to address, 3 matters.
Oh, and I did
you got
that.
it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
did that during the course of the
Okay.
discussion, yeah.
One thing I think that's missing in her list of stuff is we have quite a unique district. We've got urban, rural, suburban, exurban, and there's nothing in any of this that I've read so far that addresses their experience working with such a diverse community and all that that brings with it.
Okay, good point. Would you want to draft a definition of that? Get it to us.
I can do
Okay,
that.
perfect. Wonderful.
Because I think it's good to have somebody who is familiar with Kansas City, greater Kansas, this area. But I think it's even more important to have a person who is able to
Absolutely.
and tap into the various communities we serve.
Yeah. Great. Okay, if you can get a recommended text for that, we'll make sure that's added in. Good.
Yeah, Ron, Michael here, just to comment. I don't know if you're going to address it or if we're going to address this, but personally, I would be in favor of that assessment she was talking about. I think that would be really important and as part of our process. I know it's going to cost some more money, but I just wanted to make my comments known about that. I think that'd be really important to have that.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
I guess my thought going into this was that if you get into again, I'm not Dr. Phil, but when you get into this whole idea of more conceptual matters of human behavior and dynamics, of course, it's very important, but I would probably sway more towards the person's history of success in library management than a more conceptual idea of what's inside the guy's or her brain. But again, it's certainly, I think it would be very helpful too. And cost-wise, in the big picture, it's chicken feed.
And I think that's a key point. What do you want that assessment to answer? You can get a lot of information that will just confuse things. And that's kind of my background is in assessment and psychology and assessment. So I'm not knocking it, but unless you have a specific question about what you want to answer or what piece of information that assessment will do, it can really cloud things and really confusing. And you have to be careful in using that data in selecting a candidate.
I guess my thought would be if it enhances something that's decided upon, that's good. If it's at variance with it, my feeling would be, hey, maybe the person had a bad day. And I'm thinking we get to these role playing, like here's a scenario, something comes up. there may be validity in that, but my thought would be, how much is that really? Well,
Please, yeah. Oh, I think Michael wanted to.
Yeah, I just think it's another layer, and I'm interested in layers. I'm not interested in quirkiness or anything like that, but you know, I've used these in the past, been a part of these in the past in the corporate world, and I've always found them to be very helpful. So it's my 2 cents.
What I've learned from some of my colleagues who've been through the hiring process more recently is they feel that it helps with showing self-awareness. So that if you're an individual who feels like you're really good at something, but the data shows otherwise, you know, it helps you with that. And sometimes that can be extremely beneficial in your decision-making process.
My thought is that initially, I think it's a good step to take, but a good step in the sense that it will confirm decisions or directions that we're going in.
I would just caution this committee, just recognize that assessments are not kosher.
Oh, yeah.
And we really don't have to make that decision today, do we? I mean, we can
Months off.
let the process go a little bit further and see where we are and what we might get, except there'd be some kind of a drop dead date that we'd have to make a decision on that so that it could be prepared. But I think there's a case for both sides.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Any other comments, questions?
Well, on the definition of the position definition, what's going to happen there? We're going to get a copy of the revised one and have a chance to look at it, and hopefully at this meeting, and then get it to her after the meeting.
Yeah. The question, who has it? Megan, do you have the final draft?
No, Shauna had asked me that too. I'd made those suggestions, and if you guys want to incorporate them, I don't know if Steve maybe had a Word version of the document I had gotten in a PDF originally, and I could add the suggestions to it and let you guys look at it.
Okay,
well,
if we could get it this afternoon or today, or get it tonight.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if I could respond
Please,
to Megan. Yeah, if you've got it in PDF, and if you can just put notes, you know, like you can do notes in PDF, if you put those out to the side, I can incorporate those once I make sure I'm working off of the right Word version. I'll double check with Jennifer's team, and then I can distribute it out to the entire group. Would that be workable?
Absolutely, Steve. I'll get that over to you today.
Okay, yeah, that'll be the plan. So you all will have it hopefully this afternoon. I don't have a lot on my calendar today.
That'd be great.
All right, great. Yeah, that would work.
So I think we're just incorporating the Secretary of State's standards and Joyce's input on the demographics of that issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Do we want to look at our calendars for the next meeting, or are we kind of waiting for Shanna to come up with something?
Well, let's see.
I think there's advantage of just staying in touch, even if there's not a dynamite matter to cover.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the things that we need to make sure get covered as soon as possible.
I'd be interested in the feedback on the surveys that she's having from the community stakeholders and employees.
Yeah, we need to get that back. And she gave us a date there, I think will be the end of June, she said. But the employee survey, I don't know how long that would actually take. It shouldn't take very long at all. And I do think there'll be a robust response from employees. I'd be surprised if there isn't. So we know she gave some examples there, and I thought she needed us to say, okay, go forward on that list that you gave us.
If
So
the committee's okay with that list, I've already put Shanna and Jennifer in touch with each other. I did that during the meeting. And Jennifer's team can send out, because they manage the employee surveys that we typically do. And so Jennifer's team can do that. So if you all are generally okay with that employee survey, personally, I mean, if you want my 2 cents, it looked like it would be a good instrument for gauging information from the frontline staff. If you're comfortable with it, then as soon as Shanna gets the information to Jennifer, then Jennifer and her team can get it out there and we can keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, and she mentioned she wanted to have a short window for response, like a couple days, and then she said, well, maybe out to Friday. And
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, I feel the same. I looked at it and I didn't see anything that upset me about it. It looked like a good survey, useful survey.
As I was looking at it, I was kind of looking for areas that might be missing. And it's hard to do that without knowing what do we want to know from the employees. If we approach the survey from that perspective, then I think we could look at the list and see if there's any holes.
Yeah.
What is it that we want to know?
Well, we can do that. Couldn't we do that now? I mean, as soon as we get our hands on the written list so that we can have it before us.
Well, or, I mean, we could just talk about it even without the list. I mean, just what is it that you want to know from the frontline staff? Actually, I just have it here. Let me give me just a second. If you want to have a conversation, and if you can give me 10 minutes, I'll have a copy of this in front of the 3 of you.
Was there something that you noticed that should have been modified in it?
No, I think the questions are good. Whenever, like I said, I do assessments, I do program evaluation, and I always start with what do you want to know?
Yeah.
And I don't think we've defined that as a group. We want to hear from staff, but what is it that we want to know?
Okay, why don't you leave that discussion then? Because you work in that area, so you're stuck.
That's right. I'm stuck. What is it that we would like to know as a group? What input are we hoping to hear from our employees?
Well, I wish I had that list in front of me. I saw a number of
Give me
things
just a
on that
second.
list.
It's printing right now.
Okay, there were a number of things on that list I saw that were, would fit that, fit what I thought they might, what we like to know.
I'll give you an example of why this sticks, why I'm a stickler on this. When I was at UMKC, I was a graduate student working in the career services office. And the university spent a lot of money surveying stakeholders, everybody in the university. And one of the questions was to help them define who's your client, who does the university serve? And they came back with a whole list of people. And we got to see it a little bit before it was published. And I was one of the people that looked at the list and said, students aren't on there. They weren't even on the list because the question was focused outside. But if they wanted to know if students were important, and I'm sure it was, but if students was important, they would have been number 1 on the list.
Sure.
But they weren't even on the list. So how you ask the question should start from what is it that you want to know? Otherwise, you can end up all over the place. That's just.
Yeah, that's true. The breadth of purpose, though, from that institution to this institution is a little narrower, I think. I mean, I don't mean to confine it because I think, we strive as a library to want to not just do library work, but to use the library's capabilities to help general government do its job. That's kind of that's.
I guess that's what was missing for me on this list. What does the staff want from the CEO in terms of working with our patrons and communities that we serve?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question. Probably the first question.
Yeah, just question / comment. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I also think that the firm that we're using, the search firm that we're using, to trust their experience in putting together a list to search for the the best candidate. And so as I don't have a list in front of me, but as I looked through there, I didn't see anything that was left off necessarily. But again, I'm not looking at the list, but I think it was a pretty good list. So.
Michael and Michelle, just an FYI, I did just send the list to you. So if you can get your email at the same time, you should be able to see the list too. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not knocking the list. I'm just saying what's
Yeah,
missing.
no, I understand what you're saying. The one item is well connected across the greater Kansas City region. That tends to approach that sort of thing. In other words, it says, you want someone that is connected with throughout the region with other entities, such as other libraries, other governments, others that do education and literacy work.
But yeah, I understand that.
And
but
maybe-
could be
maybe
on
that
several
needs-
levels.
Yeah, I understand.
I guess for me, I look at our mission, and our mission is very patron-centered. But I'm not seeing it in any of this. I'm not saying this is a bad list.
Yeah,
But this list should also reflect us, our mission, our vision, our values.
well, can you make a suggestion about a phrase that might, like 4 or 5 words that might capture that? I'm sure open to that.
Yeah, we've got 8 bullet points here. We could certainly add a 9th.
I would think that a library that serves, this isn't a bullet point, but just a comment. I just think that a library that serves the many, many different communities and people and patrons with varying needs would want a leader that's committed to serving those communities. So maybe commitment to serving the many needs of the communities.
To recognize.
Yeah.
And I mean, because I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, I
Yeah.
shouldn't be, but certainly one of my colleagues, who's no longer a colleague at Greater Kansas City, understood Kansas City very well, still understands Kansas City very well, understands the different types of communities, but I don't think necessarily fully appreciated. I'm talking about Crosby. I mean, Crosby definitely knows Kansas City, definitely is a fixture in Kansas City, all of those things. But sometimes he had a little bit of a blind spot when it came to certain communities. And sometimes it's just because Crosby's Crosby. He's a great guy and sort of our regional intellectual, but sometimes couldn't really easily understand the rural parts of Greater Kansas City or the less fortunate parts of Greater Kansas City, except at the most superficial level. And I think that's what you're kind of getting at.
Yeah, it's the difference between being a regular library and having a customer satisfaction score of 90-some%. When you're talking about the customers feeling that they're getting what they want, that starts at the top by the policies, procedures, practices that get put into place. And if you've got a leader that has blind spots to how our communities use the library, they either have to be really good at listening to others or develop that by going out and seeing. But if we have somebody that has history doing that, has success doing that, I think that is the number one thing that reaches our patrons, who are the people we're supposed to be serving.
You think that could be determined through the search process done in North Carolina?
Well, this I think has
as
to
well as what
do,
we're doing here through the surveys and interviews and all that.
I think it would be interesting to see how important that is to our employees, that our leader focuses on the communities that they serve, the people they have to look at every single day.
Okay. Can you recommend some text? Not, I don't want to put you in the spot now, but you're getting some already. So maybe,
Yeah, I just taking a shot at drafting. I don't know how this works, but understanding of all communities served by Mid-Continent Public Library. And that's very broad, like some of the other things
But it's
here.
understandable.
So Michael, Michelle, did you hear that, or does that make
Yeah,
any sense?
yeah, I did. And I really appreciate that, Joycelyn. Since this is an employee survey, then we're asking the employees these questions, right?
Yes.
That's what this is, an employee survey. And we're giving them an opportunity. So if you look down the bullet points, so open communication would actually be one of the prerequisites to a leader understanding what Joycelyn is actually saying. What we're saying is, and so that's very important. Open communication. That's kind of starts the list as far as I'm concerned, and that's where it is. So we're trying to hear from the employees, is my understanding with this list, because it's an employee survey, and we have to start somewhere. And so I think we're going to get a lot of comments, or hopefully we will, when this survey goes out, that will include things about the different segments of the library. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and also we could just have another bullet, just other, and if it's important or at the forefront of somebody, one of the employees' interests, they could simply write that in also.
Yeah. That's what question 4, really. What else would you like the board to know about the current state of the library, or upcoming library director or chief executive officer search? Yeah. That question covers that, I think, doesn't it?
Which question was that?
The last question, question 4. What else would you like the library to know?
Well, you've got a different one that you're looking at, a different one than I'm looking at.
The last Q4.
Yeah, there's 4 questions in employee survey.
Oh, yeah. What else would you like? Okay, I see. Yeah, I'm sorry. I understand. I was just looking at the list itself and not the next point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would include whatever else they wanted to say, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and 3 of the questions I asked for a narrative, so I think there are certainly opportunities for feedback from the employees.
Absolutely.
So do we come to any consensus on modifying this for a particular trait to be added on, or as you mentioned,
I kind of like the way John worded it.
okay.
It's open.
Understanding the diversity of the community served by the library.
But I think it's more than just understanding. It's, I think it's more that the leader should have a commitment to serving.
Commitment, not understanding. Commitment to the diversity of the community served by the library.
Commitment to serving the diversity. Commitment to serving the diverse communities. Because we have a lot of initiatives that are very important to our communities, but if the director doesn't understand that, it could not be, it could be given less priority.
Yeah, and then and also they have the opportunity to rank these.
Yes.
They're asked to rank these. So, they could rank that middle or low or high or whichever one they wanted to do. And then we would know something. We would know what the employees think about what the director should be.
And I think it would be an important information piece for the person coming into the job that this is what the employees think are important. Because it will help his or her success, will help them be successful in the position.
If I understand correctly, we have another bullet point, which is commitment to serving the diversity of the communities served by the library. And what about diversity within the employee base itself?
I would add that too.
Well, I think the general comment, the general statement would cover all those issues.
Yeah, because the community obviously is about the
Yeah,
library employees who are
right.
by
If
definition,
they
library
understand that, you know, if the library director understands that it's a diverse community made up of people that are running farms,
including our employees.
yeah, right. Then I think that would, you know, that would do it.
Okay, good.
But I'd like to hear from Michael on that though, because he felt some discomfort with it, and I think he needs to examine the statement as it's now stated, and I don't know what it is. I've lost track.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is either, but again, as I'm just looking down through here, we're asking the employees, question one, what are the three best things
Yeah,
about Mid-Continent Public Library today? So, and then you're asking them, what are the three biggest challenges or concerns for the library today? So there's an opportunity to respond to those two questions about that. So we're trying to really pull the information out of the employees. Am I correct on that? I mean, this is what it's for.
that's right.
And then when considering the ideal next library director or chief executive officer, how important are the following? So they're going to rank those, like John was saying, and we've all said that they're going to have an opportunity to do so. And I don't know, personally, I think this questionnaire gives an opportunity for the employees to bring forth whatever they would like. And then we'll be able to know, and we will be able to actually, in the interview process of the process that we're going to go through with the prospective new director and CEO, we'll be able to use this to help us in that regard. So anyway, that's how I feel about it.
Any other comments, Michelle?
No, it all sounds good to me. I mean, I'm in favor of doing it, and I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Since the employees are asked to have the various standards ranked, you know, if we have the 9th one in, we'll be able to certainly get a feel by how they're prioritized. But again, I do very much feel comfortable and agree with Michael's comment that I think through the whole process of going through the scrutinies that will be done by our folks in North Carolina, and then interviews here, and then the deeper dive into those psychological study, I think we could find pretty soon if somebody's not sensitive to a diverse group like Kansas City. I think too, like, I guess I'm just imagining that anybody would be a candidate would be coming from a library roughly this size, which probably would incorporate a library composition of an urban core, a suburban core, and you get on the fringe, which are probably maybe more of a rural type character. So as opposed to something like a Philadelphia or Chicago inner city, major urban cosmopolitan area. But maybe not. We'll find out through this process. So are we, now that we're adding a 9th bullet as as you drafted or?
I think it's been redrafted.
It's been redrafted.
Well, the latest version, what do we have? Commitment to serving the diversity, what you going to take it?
Commitment
Cheers.
to serving the many diversity, how about say, commitment to serving the many various
Diverse
communities and communities we serve. Our many, let me collapse it, commitment to serving the many types of communities and patrons we serve.
Did you write that one down? I didn't.
I
See
have
this.
commitment to serving the many types of communities and patrons we serve.
Or the many diverse community and patients. That might be better. Typing. It's diverse.
So I can get this to Shannon
Mhm.
soon. Okay, yeah.
I just think that that's the only question on here that really gets to the patron. I mean, open communication can be considered just within the library system. But is this person able to go down to Blue Ridge and build consensus in communities in that area? Or go up to Camden Point and build community consensus in that area? I just think we need a person that's skilled and interested in doing all of that. As a CEO, I think we have many administrators and employees that are skilled in doing so, but it needs to come from the CEO then.
Okay.
Well, Michael, I guess I'm sort of in favor of that, adding that bullet point, but I don't think it changes the opportunities that employees have to rank things and express for themselves what they think is important and not important, or of medium importance. So I don't know, that's kind of the way I feel about it now. I understand what you're saying. You don't want to overload it, but on the other hand, seems like one more bullet point's not going to be, it was not going to devastate the survey. I don't think it's going to just enrich it somewhat.
And also think in terms of impact, this is just one of many, many sources of expressions for what you can look for in the new CEO. And I have a feeling that as important as this is, of course, the major input for determining is going to be the work done in North Carolina, the interviews, and the on-site interviews. So how much this will fall into play, I guess is yet to be determined. So any other comments, questions, matters we should address? Okay, Cody, would you roll the screen? We have no visitors.
No visitors and no comments that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Did you know of any, Ellie?
No, there's not.
Excellent. What do you want to roll to number 8, adjournment? Do we have a motion to adjourn? John?
I move. Yes, I move to adjourn.
Michelle? So moved in second, we adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Unanimous.